What's going on, everybody? It's just another day in the kitchen, back with another episode, and today we're taking a look at King Vamp himself, aka Playboi Carti. Today's video takes us all the way back to 2020 for the release of his album Whole Lotta Red, and we're going to be taking a look at the merch that dropped with it that was pretty controversial. Now, for those of you that weren't around during the Whole Lotta Red era at the end of 2020, people were not happy after waiting for 2 years, and as you can see from these comments, they had a whole lot to say. And while the music itself was super controversial given how his last few albums had sounded, the merch was also about to get crazy, and we're going to take a look at it here soon. As you can see, Carti has definitely evolved throughout the years, and personally I'm okay with it, and let me know in the comments which era is your favorite. And before we hop into the merch, make sure you guys check out the video of how I met Carti along with his first album and merch review right here. And I'll throw that link for this video in the description. Now, Whole Lotta Red has a whole lot of punk and rock influence written all over it. If you didn't know, the cover was actually inspired by Slash magazine, which was an LA-based publication which covered the punk scene in the late 70s. Now, as for the merch itself, it definitely has punk and metal influence all over it, like I mentioned. So let's go ahead and take a look, starting off with this Falling in Reverse tee. Now, at the first glance, it might not look that crazy or cause that much controversy to you, but I'll go ahead and show you why it was so polarizing in just a second. And you already know one of the first things I wanted to highlight is the actual shipping time when it comes to Carti's Whole Lotta Red merch. And as you can see, this piece right here, along with most of these pieces, ship anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks, which is basically 2 to 3 months, and basically ain't nobody trying to ship our stuff on time. Now, this same Falling in Reverse tee ended up actually getting Playboi Carti sued by Ronnie Radke, the lead singer of Falling in Reverse and formerly Escape the Fate. If you don't know about Ronnie, he's a legend in the metal and metalcore scene, and I actually met him and sold him sneakers, which is kind of crazy to see him suing Carti a couple years later. So I'll go ahead and link that in the description in case you want to see it. Now, overall, the aesthetic of this merch features a lot of upside down crosses, which is pretty antagonizing for certain groups of people. And I also wanted to point out that Carti started to use the heartagram, which was made popular by Bam Margera and the band Him. It's a symbol that was adopted by all kinds of skaters and fans of the show Viva La Bam, as well as Jackass and many, many more. So shout out to Bam one time, and I hope he gets it together. And one thing I did want to mention as we take a look at this Whole Lotta Red merch is the fact that there is a second wave to it. So make sure you guys stick around because I think it's a whole lot better than this first wave. And as somebody that grew up listening to metal and rock and deathcore and all of that crazy stuff, personally this type of merch is right up my alley. But I definitely understand how it's not meant for everyone. Now, this piece right here is interesting because it features the opium plant, which is of course the name of his label. Shout out to Destroylonely and Kencarson, two of his great artists. And let me know in the comments what your favorite song is by these guys right here. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is that all of these are printed, or at least the shirts anyway, are printed on tees that are meant to feel heavier and a little bit oversized, which is very, very similar, of course, to Travis Scott's merch. And again, we see the use of that heartagram kind of, so let me know in the comments what you guys think about it overall. And now that we're coming up on 3 years since this album released, I can definitely tell you in confidence that I don't think I've ever seen anybody wear this merch out in public. I don't think that's necessarily a statement saying that it's a bad type of merch drop, but the fact that it's just not for everybody. However, I do believe you'd probably catch people wearing this merch very proudly at his shows or any kind of local metal show that you would go to. Now, one thing I wanted to point out when it comes to this merch is we do see some references to the label 299, which I'm not sure that Carti ever actually did anything with because we know that he ended up founding Opium, I believe, in 2019. But like I said, there are references to that. Now, for some interesting accessories I haven't seen anybody pull off before, there's this dope chain wallet in the shape of a coffin that looks leather for 45 bucks. And personally, I think that's really cool and a nice little custom piece. Of course, we've got that keychain for 35 we just saw and a coffee mug, which I don't see people use very often. And as I say with every merch video, any great merch drop has, of course, a rug, and Carti's Whole Lotta Red was no exception, as you guys can see here. Now, like I said, there is a whole second wave to this drop, which I think is personally a bit better, so let's go ahead and take a look. To start off, we've got a collaboration between CPFM, which is of course Cactus Plant Flea Market, a very known staple brand in the streetwear industry, which has gone on to collab with several big brands. I would expect that the retail on these pieces was of course a little bit heavier given that it is a collaboration, and as you can see, these pieces of artwork are very similar or in the style of CPFM pieces, which was really cool to see. Now this black leather devil tee was available but in black on the first wave, so we definitely see a difference here. While doing my research, I did see that these pieces were also consistently shipping anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks, which is again pretty normal at this point. Now, the difference between this wave is of course new merch pieces, but you also have the ability to purchase the vinyl, which I think is always a great pickup whether you're a collector or not. Now, some themes that you'll see throughout the second wave, which Carti has now used throughout the rest of his tenure throughout this Whole Lotta Red era, is the use of vampire stuff or vampire type shit. You'll see some more references with the fangs here and also a really cool accessory a little bit later. Now, he does call himself King Vamp, and I'm surprised that he hasn't done more with it. You'll see throughout this drop where, again, they consistently feature the upside down cross and some more satanic type pieces, which I remember people were not happy about online. Now, since this album has released, I know a lot of people have come around and become fans of it. Personally, I think this tee right here is pretty hard. But in my honest opinion, when it comes to the Whole Lotta Red album, I believe it's best experienced live. Although I haven't seen Carti during this Whole Lotta Red era, I have seen a bunch of his YouTube performances and the energy is insane despite him not really performing. And I did want to point out we've got another reference to 2-9, which now that I think about it, I do remember he had that scrap mixtape with Uzi, which was supposed to be titled 1629. 16 belong obviously to Uzi and 29 obviously has some kind of importance or relevance to Carti. Now, a lot of these pieces do have that typical satanic occultism theme to it, which, again, I think is pretty hard, but I understand why some people might not like this or wearing it out in public. And while I was just mentioning Uzi, one thing I think is kind of interesting is all of the flack that he's been getting throughout the years when he's mentioned that he worships the devil or just any kind of themes related to that. Carti definitely got a bunch of blowback for it when it initially dropped, but I think it's interesting how it's cooled down. Now, these next few pieces are some of the reasons why I think this Wave 2 is so much better, and as you can see, we've got a really sick Bloodsucker skate deck, which I think is always great when it comes to merch drops. Here we've got a classic double cup candle, which I think is so raw. The double cup, of course, is inspired by all of your favorite rappers sipping lean. Shout out to Lil Wayne one time. Of course, we've got a rolling tray, which Travis needs to bless us with one day. Let me know what your favorite backwood is in the comments. And now for one of my favorite accessories I've ever seen with a merch drop, just because I think it's so fun and cool themed to this actual drop itself, are the vampire fangs. Like I said, we're talking about King Vamp here. You see all the vampire related merch. So of course we had to have some vampire fangs available, and it definitely makes sense given it's King Vamp and Playboi Carti. Now I think it's safe to say after looking at all of this Whole Lotta Red merch that you can definitely see the overall theme and aesthetic that Carti has been pushing since late 2020. Personally, like I said, I'm a big fan and I've grown up on this type of music and aesthetic, so personally I think it's pretty raw. Now with that being said, let me know what your favorite song is off of the album. Personally, I think mine has to be Sky. I think it's such a banger. If you made it this far in the video, you might as well go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys thought about this video in general. I'm very interested in what Carti's next album is going to sound like, especially since we got that deep voice Carti on the new Travis album. So as always, guys, thank you so much for cooking with the kitchen. Please stay safe out here. It's lit. Straight up. Peace.